World leaders, regulatory bodies, financial leaders, economists, analysts, almost everyone with some authority is saying the same thing, that all is well, the economy is resilient, inflation has been tamed, and rate cuts will soon begin. The wave of optimism is strong and seems to dragging everyone else along with it, but you need to pause. Look around you, look at your bank accounts, look at the cost of living. Do you really feel like all is well? A December 18th, 2023, Bankrate report sheds light on the American dilemma, with data to back it up. All signs currently point to a resilient economy. Americans have been spending pretty freely. The job market remains strong, wages are rising faster than inflation, and interest rates have been rising. Meanwhile, prices have cooled off a bit, and inflation is steadily decreasing. Despite these positive indicators, many Americans don't expect their wallets to feel any better next year. The Bankrate survey finds that nearly 2/3 of Americans, or 63%, don't expect their personal finances to improve in 2024. That includes 38% who think their financial situations will remain the same, and 26% who think their finances will worsen. Only 2 in 5 Americans, or 37%, think their financial situations will improve in the new year. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's dive in deeper. The unemployment saga. In February 2023, the U.S. Department of Labor's Bureau of Labor Statistics published the monthly jobs report, indicating a decrease in the unemployment rate to 3.4%. The report highlighted the addition of over 500,000 jobs in January, along with the creation of 800,000 manufacturing jobs in the preceding 2 years. Commerce Secretary Raimondo remarked, "President Biden's economic plan is demonstrating its effectiveness. Upon assuming office, the unemployment rate was 6.3%, and now it stands at just 3.4%, the lowest in 54 years. Raimondo added, "The last quarter witnessed robust growth in GDP, consumer spending, and disposable income. While there is more work ahead, we are constructing a resilient economy that benefits all Americans." Reflecting on the state of the economy when President Biden took office, Raimondo emphasized, "We faced a crisis, but now we have achieved unprecedented job creation, remarkably low unemployment, and a record number of small business applications. America is once again experiencing forward momentum." Well, is it? Despite the job market maintaining strength, albeit gradually cooling from the highs seen during the pandemic era, workers don't share the same optimistic outlook. Recent data from Glassdoor reveals that employee confidence hit its lowest point since 2016 last month. Approximately 46% of workers expressed a positive 6-month outlook for their employers, down from 54% a year ago. Similarly, the ZipRecruiter Job Seeker Confidence Index dropped 6 points in the second quarter, reaching its lowest level since the beginning of 2022. By September 2023, the unemployment rate had risen to its highest point in over a year. Beneath these developments, it seemed that the Federal Reserve was concealing its desire for unemployment levels to increase, viewing it as a precursor to a rise in inflation. The cooling labor market prompted Federal Reserve officials to abstain from further interest rate hikes, the Fed's hidden agenda. In the early part of last year, senior policy reporter Rachel Cohen unveiled a well-kept secret, which, however, received limited coverage from most media outlets due to the preference of the wealthy and influential to keep it under wraps for as long as possible. The revelation pertains to a highly influential economic theory that has persisted for 65 years, suggesting that inflation increases as unemployment decreases. This relationship, commonly referred to as the Phillips curve, has found strong support among experts, including those at the Federal Reserve. Skandar Amarnath, the executive director of the burgeoning and impactful advocacy group Employ America, has persistently opposed this principle without much success. Over the past 4 years, Amarnath has been urging economic experts across the political spectrum to reconsider their long-standing assumptions, challenging the idea that combating inflation inevitably involves raising unemployment. His argument contends that the remedy for inflation, higher unemployment, can be more detrimental than the ailment itself, emphasizing the importance of prioritizing the welfare benefits of keeping people employed. While one might expect the government's top priority to be ensuring the well-being and prosperity of its citizens, this is not necessarily the case. Furthermore, this principle is not foolproof or thoroughly tested. The effectiveness of a model lies in its ability to provide reliable explanations and forecasts over time. Notably, from 2013 to 2016, the US unemployment rate was declining, and despite warnings of potential inflation risks, inflation did not increase between 2015 and 2019, despite the low unemployment rate during that period. Presently, we are witnessing what could be considered the real-time unraveling of the Phillips curve theory, as inflation experiences a decline in both wages and prices, while unemployment simultaneously decreases. However, the Federal Reserve appears hesitant to alter its course anytime soon, and in fact, seems to be engaging in a strategic play with the American public. In December 2023, Federal Reserve officials opted to maintain unchanged interest rates in their final policy decision. They forecasted a plan to reduce borrowing costs 3 times in the upcoming year, signaling a shift in the central bank's strategy against rapid inflation. Following Federal Reserve Chair Jay Powell's clear indication that the US Central Bank would initiate rate cuts in 2024, Wall Street's benchmark index reached its highest point in nearly 2 years. Investors celebrated the anticipation of lower borrowing costs. Powell's post-decision comments also hinted at a change in the bank's tone, stating that the benchmark rate was now likely at or near its peak for this tightening cycle. Observing this shift, Priya Misra, a portfolio manager at JP Morgan Asset Management, remarked, "They went from higher for longer in September to talking about rate cuts. They were behind the curve on inflation, but maybe they want to be ahead of the curve in terms of a slowdown." However, barely a few days later, they reneged again, saying they were uncertain about when rate cuts would begin. Americans are having a hard time, and it's getting worse. Simultaneously, the exorbitant cost of living is inflicting significant hardship on Americans, with numerous families grappling to meet their financial needs. The combination of inflation and wage stagnation has created an increasingly challenging scenario for ordinary Americans as they struggle to keep up with the escalating expenses associated with essential requirements such as housing, gas, healthcare, and food. The gravity of this issue is impacting millions of diligent Americans who seek relief amid the uncertainties of the economy. A 2021 brief by the Council of Economic Advisors highlighted the challenges faced by American families over the past 3 decades, noting a surge in the costs of necessities that have impeded their attainment of economic security. Researchers estimate that, between 1984 and 2014, around 80% of families witnessed a more than 7 percentage point increase in the share of their budgets dedicated to needs like housing and healthcare, potentially displacing spending in other vital areas such as leisure, long-term educational investments, and retirement savings. Inflation has significantly contributed to the mounting cost of living. As of July 2023, consumer prices were 3.2% higher than the previous year, amplifying the financial strain on families trying to afford their basic necessities. Further exacerbating the issue is wage stagnation. According to a 2017 Harvard Business Review report, hourly inflation-adjusted wages for the typical worker have scarcely risen since the early 1970s, growing at a meager rate of 0.2% per year. While the cost of living continues to soar, wages have failed to keep pace, leaving many families in the predicament of struggling to make ends meet. New federal data reveal that the number of Americans working 2 or more jobs has reached its highest level since the start of the pandemic. This trend underscores the notion that one job alone is insufficient. In October, nearly 8.4 million people were reported to hold multiple jobs, with roughly 5 million working 1 full-time and 1 part-time job, around 2 million managing 2 part-time positions, and another 1.1 million holding jobs with variable hours. The escalating issue of household debt has swiftly become a pressing concern within our nation. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, by the end of the 3rd quarter in 2023, total household debt in the US soared to a record high of $17.29 trillion, marking a 4.8% increase over the preceding 12 months. Nestled within this household debt is an unprecedented $1.08 trillion in credit card debt, reflecting a substantial 16.6% surge compared to the previous year. Wall Street contends that the collective burden of Americans' record high $1.08 trillion in credit card debt is unsustainable. As indicated by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, 1 in 10 Americans find themselves in a state of persistent debt, where the interest and fees they incur surpass the amount of principal they can repay. Consequently, despite making modest payments, their credit card balances continue to escalate each month, particularly with interest rates on numerous credit cards hovering around 25%. Housing affordability has significantly dwindled, declining by nearly half since the era of ultra-low interest rates in 2021, according to the National Association of Realtors. In August, the median family fell short by $9,000 of the required income to purchase the median existing home, and the recent surge in interest rates has pushed an additional 5 million US families below the qualification standard for a $400,000 loan, as reported by John Burns Real Estate Consulting. With 3% mortgage rates, 50 million households could secure a loan of that size, but now only 22 million qualify. The qualifying yearly income for a median-priced house in 2020 was $49,680, and now it exceeds $107,000. These are striking figures that intensify the challenge of house affordability for numerous American families, especially those aiming to purchase their first home, expressed bond market expert Mohammed El Erian, an advisor to Allianz, among various other roles, in a post on X. "It's a very concerning development for America," added NAR chief economist Lawrence Yun. "It is clear that the economic outlook painted by world leaders and experts does not resonate with the everyday experiences of Americans. Despite assurances of a robust economy and controlled inflation, a closer look at the situation reveals a more nuanced reality. There's a hidden agenda to ensure that the rich keep getting richer, while the poor keep getting poorer. This is the truth that nobody wants you to know."